Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name's Brian, and I'm one of the pastors here, but also one of the members of our Guatemala trip this year. And what we are going to talk about today is our trip that we took in the middle of July this past year, which really was the 4th annual Cedar Ridge trip, partnership trip to Impala, Guatemala. And it was another great opportunity for us to be engaged in building that partnership and building the friendship and relationship that we have with the people of Impala. So today we're going to just share some of our stories and our impressions of that trip. Some of the people we met, some of the things that we did that we think you would appreciate hearing as part of the community that really has been so supportive of the people in Guatemala. There were 11 of us on the team. I think all of us are here. And as we headed down, we also met up with Vernon Archer, who is also a key part of our congregation. And he was down there with a group of teachers, as he does each year. But we did a lot of things together. And so Vernon can't be here today. But the rest of us are going to share some of our stories and impressions. We, as much as we would like to, we can't share everything about the trip, or we'd be here for a pretty long time, and you wouldn't be. So we will just try to keep it short. We'd love to talk with you afterwards or anytime down the road just to fill in some more details if you're interested in hearing that. And we're going to save some of those stories and some of the things for later in the year, just as we bring updates about what's been going on in Guatemala, and you'll have an opportunity to hear that. We're going to go in 3 different groups this morning. Just logistically, it seems to make sense that we do that, and so we're each going to have a chance to talk. We have a couple places where we have a video lined up, and we are hopeful that the sound starts working again for our videos, but they're troubleshooting back there as we speak. If not, we're going to run with it, see what happens. So we're going to start out today and just talk a little bit about compassion that is contagious and see how we witness that in a lot of different ways in Guatemala. So Bill and Janet and Shoba are going to get us started.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's good to see you all. I've been away most of the summer, and it's great to be back and see you all and be here this morning. I want to start out with something about part of the tone that we tried to set during the week as we went about our visiting people and visiting villages and barrios, aldeas in and around Impala. So the breakfast on maybe our first or second morning, our conversation turned on how do we present ourselves as a church here in this community where everyone knows we're a church, and we work with church schools, and we work with a lot of our partners, very devout in their faith. And so how do we be followers of Jesus in this context? And somehow I remembered this quote of St. Francis, or a reasonable facsimile, and it seemed to help us to understand at least a little bit about part of our role here in Impala. And it goes like this, which is probably up there. It says, preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. I don't want to give us a big pat on the back or take any credit for this. However, I think God used us well as we went about Guatemala. As we went on with our week, I think I sensed that somehow the Holy Spirit was using our presence there to strengthen the faith and biblical understanding of caring for the least of these, as Jesus talks about in Matthew 25, without us having to say anything. Among the people we met at the schools and in the very poor barrios and aldeas in and around Impala, the Holy Spirit helped us to care with tears. And people just knew that they were being loved. And I hope they knew that they were being loved not just by us, but also by God.
Hello, my name's Janet Heitkamp, and this was my first trip to Impala. And I got pretty excited about what we're all doing there. And I think it's rather unique. What I saw was we have these very strong relationships. We're working with the local government, which kind of seems a little unique. And it seems like we're touching the community from all different directions. From the very poor with smokeless stoves to the English students that maybe are not as poor. And from this, I felt like it almost created a little bit of a synergy that raised the level of hope and then almost resulted in giving, multiplying. So the story, or the video I'd like to share with you all, is about a school where you all paid for part of the courtyard to be paved. And it's a U-shaped courtyard. And then what happened was the government then kind of stepped in and paid for the rest of it to be paved. And then the teachers were so touched by our giving that they then got excited and started to have fundraisers and completed part of a classroom. So this school, the principal was pretty passionate and pretty excited. So I wanted to share this video clip. If the sound is not working quite perfect, I'm going to just give a snippet of what he's saying. He's describing this courtyard as being nothing but dirt and rocks. And he is passionately saying that our giving has changed and transformed the whole school. So we can take a look. Okay. So the sound is not working. So, but again, he is saying that this courtyard was nothing but dirt and rocks. And some of you, he says, that have been there multiple times, like Teresa and Brian, you remember how bleak it was and how the children maybe didn't even want to come to school. And just one little bit of giving resulted in a total transformation. This school put on a huge production for us. The little kids were singing English songs. Each grade came forward with little posters thanking us. And you could feel and sense the excitement and the transformation one patio did for this whole school.
Thanks, Janet. And thanks for taking the video. And we will, once we get that up, we'll put it online so that you can capture the passion of Carlos as he shared with us and said, I know many times, I think they're saying gracias, gracias, gracias to Cedar Ridge for our involvement there. So, yeah, thanks, Janet. And I know you picked up on that even as a first timer. Just an excellent. Great. Shoba?
All right.
Tell us.
Hello, my name is Shoba Duncan, and this is also my first time to go to Impala. And the story I'd like to tell is about a woman named Rosa Lydia. Rosa Lydia is a school administrator in Impala, and her story just really touched us as we got to know her this week. She's actually had been here to Cedar Ridge as part of a teacher exchange a few years ago. You all might remember that there was a group of teachers that came and did kind of a traditional dance for us, and she was a part of that. So when we got there, she was one of the people that welcomed us, and she went with us as we delivered some of the smokeless stoves. And the homes that we delivered to were incredibly poor. A lot of them had mud walls and dirt floors, and the people had hardly any furniture, no running water. And as we went around visiting, she was with us, and when we got back, I just want to tell you what she said to us. I lived in this community of Impala all my life. I go to work all day, then come home, and then the next day repeat the same. Until you all from Cedar Ridge came here, I had never visited some of the barrios where my students live. The conditions where they live brought me to tears. I never knew. I only see the students in the classrooms, but now I've seen with new eyes what their homes are like. She told us this with such compassion and caring, and with really with tears in her eyes. And it just reminded us that we are touching the lives of the people that help the others there in Impala. And I really had a wonderful trip, and I hope that many of you all get to go someday. And thank you so much for all your generosity. It's just making an incredible difference.
Well, thank you, Group 1, for sharing. talk a little bit, dig in a little bit to the, I think what we might call the heart of Impala. And we're going to have an opportunity to get a glimpse of that and from a couple different perspectives. In this particular group, we have two people who went to Guatemala or Impala for the first time. And then we have someone who's been there a few times, Gina. And then Edwin, who, well, he's kind of been born there. So, you know, that's a slightly different perspective. And so it was great to have Edwin along with us as one of the folks living in Baltimore, but has been a great partner, one of the great partners with us locally as we connect with that community in Guatemala. And so we are going to start off with Gina. Gina, you came back to Guatemala again. Tell us what your experience was about this time. And this would help probably.
Yes, this was my third trip going to Impala, and I have to tell you, it was wonderful. It felt like going home. I mean, just going through the city, walking through the streets and waving at people that we know, that we've met on previous trips, and having people tap you on the shoulder and people hugging you and thanking you for coming back. It was just overwhelming. And one of the highlights for me was working on the house, building the house that your generosity helped to pay for. We were working with some of the students that are learning to speak English, and it was just so much fun. One of the things I was thinking about, other than Daniel, none of our kids were there, and it just dawned on me that the kids we were working with, those are our kids. They were just so much fun to work with, and we were doing work clearing away some of the litter and the trash from the house, the back of the house, and they just broke out and singing. I don't know if you remember this cartoon called The Smurfs. They just started singing the Smurf song, and it was just so funny, and we just had a wonderful time of connecting and just sharing a wonderful time together. And during part of our downtime, we went off to the side in the grassy area, and we played a couple of games, and it was just so much fun to just, you know, feel free to just hug each other and experience this thing together. It was beautiful, and I would encourage anyone that's thinking about going to definitely, you know, plan on going.
Gina, I was just wondering now, were any of us wearing these blue shirts when the Smurf song happened?
I don't think we were, but I don't think we were.
All right, Daniel, your first time, what were your impressions?
Well, to be honest, when I went down there, I wasn't really knowing what I was expecting to see, and I knew I was going to have to come up here and talk. So I really was asking myself the question, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And almost like answers over again, I saw really random acts of kindness all over the community. Like when we're building a house down there, really anyone in the community showed up to help out. And then when I think we were going to see how Aussie handled Who Got Stoves and that, on the way there, I saw this guy on a motorcycle passed us, and while we rounded the turn, we saw they had stopped for an elder who had, I guess, fallen off his bike, and his leg was trapped on the bike, and he was stuck in the road, and he helped him up, made sure he was all right. And then the third one was a bit funny. We were at Rosie's, which is one of the restaurants we go to eat, and I guess Sal had gone out to get some fresh air, and he brought his glasses case, and he forgot that. And a school bus from the high school came and stopped right in front of the restaurant. The driver came to the restaurant with Sal's glasses, and just was like, who's this? Whose is this? And so I really feel like they have a really good community down there, because they really are honest and they stick up for each other, really. So, yeah. And I would say, anyone who hasn't gone, you really need to go.
There you go. There's a theme going on here. But excellent. Thanks, Daniel. You were great to have as a part of our trip. One of the things that we did while we were there, last fall, and into the winter. Cedar Ridge had a little campaign, right, to purchase smokeless stoves. And we said for $155, you folks could donate that or parts of that, and we could build a stove. As we partnered with the municipality of Ipala, who, together we made, the cost was about $195 per stove. And during the course of that, you guys responded incredibly. This was a separate fund into a Guatemala designated fund, and that project was specifically for smokeless stoves. And together we raised enough money to give stoves to at least 50 families in Ipala. And this time we had the opportunity to be a part of delivering 18 of those stoves to the families. And so you can imagine, there were 2 different neighborhoods we were a part of, and you can imagine some of the emotion that was going on there. In some ways, for me, it was a little bit, sobering, because we just walked into homes that people were very welcoming and proud of their homes, but wow, it's very different from our homes, and yet it was humbling at the same time, too, knowing that the mothers in that home, or grandmothers at times, and the children that they would often carry on their hip as they cooked throughout the day on their old stoves, were now not going to have to breathe in the smoke all day long. And that was a major cause of respiratory illness for people in Ipala. And so to be a part of kind of just a small solution to that was just really awesome. And so this particular slide is a woman working with old and new. Here's our soundless video. Go ahead. That's an old and then a new stove right next to it. And we'll see some pictures of the new stove. This is a community called La Reforma. And firecrackers are big when you're celebrating. And so, much to the surprise of many of us in our little delegation, several different homes had a string of firecrackers, and whenever we came to their home, they would light it up. It was pretty high decibels. But here they had gathered together, and this is one of the poorest neighborhoods in the area. And the community gathered together in front of one of the homes, and we delivered 6 in this particular area. And they were just expressing from the depths of their heart their gratitude. This is one of the new stoves that was delivered there in the middle. That's not the final place where it was going to be. But we went along to 6 homes there, 12 homes otherwise, where Shoba was talking about. And this is just part of their community celebration of Thanksgiving and gratitude for all of you who donated stoves. You can see the joy that they had. This is delivering to one of the homes from them, and just the joy that these families, whether they were single moms, whether they did different stories involved in these stoves, but they were really humble and grateful. And here's the stoves going in. Somebody asked me the other day, what's the deal with the smokeless part? Well, every stove has smoke, but you can see an old stove in the foreground. The smoke just comes up, and you can see on the walls and on the roofs there, they are covered in soot. But these have the vent that goes out. It's more efficient use of wood. And then the vent goes out the top, and then the smoke goes outside of the house, and so it's not being caught up in that place. So this is just a glimpse. Again, we'll post these online and try to link to it. Just some of the joy and the gratitude that they were expressing. And then one of the stoves was delivered earlier. It's fully operational, and here's a woman making tortillas on that stove. And she was very excited about it. And this stove is actually stove 2.0 in our process. Our team down there, our partners there, had found that they weren't completely happy with the way that the first stove build went. There were 2 kind of prototypes, and so they found a comparable price, but a much better thing, so we were able to start afresh with these stoves. So thanks to you all who donated to that stove project. They're still in the process of delivering more, and we'll be sending down kind of another batch of money from that fund to keep going. So it's a huge difference, and they're so grateful for your involvement with that stove project. So thank you very much. Now, Edwin, you weren't around, I don't think, when we visited that day. You were one of the guys, along with Sal, that really spent a lot of time investing in the house build. And so you missed out on that stove delivery, but I know you had some friends who were in that community, and I think even received a stove. And so you went later that day just to visit that neighborhood. And can you tell us a little bit about what was going on with that group?
Yes, good morning. My name is Edwin Duarte. It's good to be here. I'm from Ipala. And like Brian was saying, I was helping to build in the house. And one day, a friend of mine, I have a family whose name is Eugenia and Hugo, and the children's Christian and Maria Jose, they call me Uncle Edwin. So one day, I turned around while I was, helping build the house, and she was coming with Maria Eugenia. And I went to say hello to her, and then she said, I thought you was going to be there. And I didn't know that she got one of those stoves, right? So I wanted to see how the stoves look like, because I never know how do they look like. And I was heard to say Lorena, I don't know who was Lorena it was. So I said, well, maybe tomorrow I'll go visit you. I got some present for the for the girl and the boy. So the next day, I went to look for the house. I didn't even know what the house was. So, and I asked somebody if they know Hugo and Eugenia. They said, yeah, she live ahead of go straight ahead. It's going to be on the left-hand side with the metal walls. So I got there, but she wasn't home. So her neighbor asked me, she said, well, come on in. She's not home, and you can leave the stuff with me. I'll give it to her. He said, okay. And I said, well, you got one of those Lorenas too? She said, yeah, I got one of those Lorenas. So can I look at it? So she said, yeah, come on in. So I went inside and looked at the Lorenas. I took some pictures and said, you can see the Hugo's and Eugenia Lorenas from here. So I went and looked at her the stove. So I was happy that she had one of those Lorenas. And she also showed me how the Lorenas work. She started taking them apart. He said, you can make tortillas here, you can cook some beans, and I was so happy. And I said, I want to give you one of those. And I don't have one.
Thanks, Edwin, for just for sharing that and being a part of our group once again. So that's great part of it. And then, Mary, you had a situation, a person that I know kind of connected a little bit around the stove as well. Why don't you tell just about your experience on your first time?
My name is Mary Brewster, and I also just experienced my first trip to Ipala. I've been a nurse for over 40 years, and I thought I knew about poverty from my work in New York City, the migrant camps of Eastern Long Island, and working with low-income pregnant women in Wards 7 and 8 in the district. But nothing really prepared me for what I saw in those communities we visited in Ipala. But even more overwhelming to me than the poverty that I saw was the depth of the gratitude that these people expressed, from the families receiving the stoves, to the scholarship students, to the schools we visited, to a person. Everyone, first and foremost, gave thanks to God for the life He had given them and the blessings in their lives to this day. And next, they expressed their gratitude to Cedar Ridge, to the local agency, used to be called OSSI, is now called Cedar, and to the municipal government. Along with the thank you letters, many of them, including the kids in school, whose displays are in the back, presented thank you notes, and along with that, handmade gifts that they were very proudly announced were made from recycled materials. They knew that was important to us, and so they were very proud of the fact that everything they made was from recycled materials. There were two women in particular that I would like to tell you about as examples of the gratitude that we witnessed there. The first one was Olivia. She's a grandmother I met at the school in Las Colinas as we waited for the start of the dedication of a new classroom. And even though we couldn't speak much or any of each other's language, we bonded as grandmothers. I shared my cell phone pictures of my grandsons, and she introduced me to her grandchildren who attend Las Colinas School. A little while later that morning, we had the honor of being at her house when a stove was delivered to her. She showed us where the stove was going to go, she showed us her yard and where she prepared her food, and even introduced us to her grandson who had a little pet squirrel he had trained. And we took a look at everything, and the whole group was getting ready to leave to go see the next house where the stove was being delivered, when Olivia went back into her small home and came out with this bag in her hands. And I know you probably can't all see it in the back, but the silver that you see is flip tops from soda and juice cans. And she hand crocheted this. She said that she had made it as a thank you gift for Cedar Ridge and realized that she only had the one. She didn't have enough for everybody in our group. And then she turned and presented the purse to me. I was so stunned because these people have so little in comparison to what we think is important. And yet she had taken the time and the delicate work in this to make this, and then to offer it to me. So of course I burst into tears. And then she got teary-eyed, and we were hugging each other, and it was very, very moving moment for me. The other woman that I met is named Juana. Juana's a nurse who grew up in Las Colinas and still lives there to this day. She received a scholarship to finish high school and another scholarship to finish nursing school. And she now has a nursing position in Chicamula, but she returns home every day to Las Colinas, where she grew up, so that she can pay back her gratitude for those scholarships by helping in volunteer ways in her community when people need her nursing expertise. And also, by the way, when I was talking to Julio in nurse speak, to Juana, Julio was translating for us, and he made the comment that he now knew more than he ever wanted to know about pregnancy and childbirth. I've returned to Maryland having received much more than I gave when I was down there, and I'm really grateful for that.
All right, thank you guys. Group is going to come up, and what we're going to talk a little bit about. I know that the whole immigration issue from Central America is a hot topic for folks, and we're not going to get into that right now. But we know that a lot of people are coming from very desperate situations and are just looking for a way out. And one of the things that struck me this time, and we had some conversations with folks down there about that issue, and Vernon did as well. But one of the things I think in hearing that, you know what, kids from Impala really aren't trying to come up here, as far as they know, there's not a major push from that area. I think in part that's because there's a glimmer of hope for the future, and that those young people and older people are having hope that something good is happening in Impala. And not because Cedar Ridge is, but we're catching a glimpse of that. And so that came true, I think, for somebody who is moving towards the end of her life and receives something new. And some of the students that we were hanging out with, whether they be English students or young children or the scholarship students that Cedar Ridge supports. And so our next crew is going to talk a little bit about their role and what they saw as we were there, kind of along those lines. So Salvador, share with us.
So my name is Salvador Chires. It is true, I did visit a lot of the schools as well, but there were days that were definitely dedicated to building houses for folks. Two things happened on this trip. One of them was that for myself, I was able to form deeper relationships with folks that I had just met in passing last year. And this year, just getting to know their stories, getting to know their families, and really formed friendships with several people down there this year. It was absolutely amazing. It was absolutely uplifting. The amount of efforts that the community was willing to put in, as well as receive help from us this year. the amount of help and the amount of work that the children put into building a lady's house this year. She was in her early 70s, but I'll tell you, the house that they knocked down, they took off the roof and the walls fell down. That's how fragile this house was that they were rebuilding. It would, when it rained, she was walking through at least a foot of water every day throughout her entire house because the water would come off the road and into her house. So the way the house was constructed this year, there's going to be a lip so that that doesn't happen as often. It may still happen if they get a torrential downpour, but by and large, it's going to be a dry house now, made out of cement, just like the house we did last year. And the kids would show up in their uniforms. And by the way, I don't know how they did it. They did it last year too, and I just wanted to see if they do it this year. They would show up in their school uniforms, white shirts, whatever it was, and they would leave with white shirts. And I don't know how they, because I looked like I'd been drugged through a mud pit when I would leave there. And these kids would just walk away in their flats and white shirts. I don't know how they did it. But they would play, but they would work, and they made it fun. And they were giving back to their community, and they knew it. And they knew that they were giving back to somebody who needed it. And that piece of it, I see last year, and I see more this year, that the community is more willing to invest in itself with, pretty much minimal input from us, but we're there giving as much as we possibly can. And that piece of it, along with the friendships that I formed this year, knowing people's history, knowing their families, really getting to know them well, I've started forming friendships down there that will last a lifetime.
And Teresa and Julio, you're going to kind of tag team here for our closing.
So my name is Teresa Graham, and this was actually my third visit to Ipala. And I just want to start today with a question. Do you make a difference in the world? As we stay busy in the minutiae of our everyday lives, personal lives, it's easy to perceive ourselves and our lives as insignificant to the world. This leaves us with the question, how much of a ripple effect do our words and actions have on others? In reality, everyone and everything is 6 or fewer steps away by the way of introduction from any other person in the world. I think on the screen you'll see a picture of 6 people. Wilson, you'll see the first one carrying the bananas. He's a grower and distributor of bananas from Ecuador to the US. Wade is a clerk at Trader Joe's. And Matthew's the lead pastor of Cedar Ridge. Then you'll see Colleen on the bottom. She's an attorney in Maryland and a member of Cedar Ridge. Then you see Minor. Minor is a business owner in Ipala and also... We got sound! I think our video is going to work now. Minor is also the treasurer of a group called Cedar, which is a partnership with us in Ipala. And the last one is Darius. She's a student at one of the schools in Ipala. All of their lives have been connected in a major way by rather small events in their personal everyday lives. Wilson will probably never know that Matthew purchased and used his bananas to make his infamous banoffee pies. Wade, doing his job every day, had no idea that he was the connection to get Wilson's bananas to Matthew, or that Colleen would buy a pie, and along with her faithful giving every week to Cedar Ridge, she would contribute to the work we do in Ipala. And the ripple continues as Minor and his committee, Cedar, would interview and select Darius to receive a scholarship with the funds provided by the giving each week of those of you at Cedar Ridge. Just $20 a month provides schooling for 1 year for a child. This shows the world is smaller than we imagine. It's impossible not to have an effect on others, far beyond even our knowing. Each person did their small part, not knowing how they would play a part in this student getting a scholarship and living out her dreams and breaking the cycle of illiteracy and poverty. Now I want to share with you about the education system in Guatemala. There was a part of me that really wanted to only share the touchy-feely part. However, my heart said I had to be honest and share with you the full truth of the reality of the education system in Guatemala, along with the growth and positive things that we're seeing. Guatemala is one of the poorest countries in Latin America. 48.9% of the children under 5 suffer from malnutrition. Nearly 32% of the country's population is illiterate. That statistic jumps to more than 60% in the rural areas of Guatemala. This was evident as many of the women that signed for receiving their stoves, which you'll see on a plaque back here on the back, they used their thumbprint instead of their signature. Since the compulsory education ends at 6th grade, many Guatemalan children do not get to attend secondary school. According to USAID, only 3 of 10 children graduate from 6th grade, and only 10% of the girls that are even enrolled in secondary school. Most girls have limited schooling, early marriage, frequent childbearing, and continue the vicious cycle of chronic poverty. Because more than half of the population lives below the poverty line, many children, especially the rural children, are forced to drop out of school, either to help support their families or because they cannot afford the cost of uniforms, books, schools, or the transportation to and from school. Imagine for a moment, as a parent, having to tell your child that they can't go on to 7th grade because you can't afford to put them in school. That was the pain that we saw in so many of the eyes of the parents and the desperate words they shared for their children. This is Emmeline Jasmine Barrientos. We watched Emmeline growing up over the past few years of going to Ipala. Every year we visited with her and her family in their neighborhood, Las Colinas. We'd say hi again as she walked past the hotel with her friends going to her school in Ciudad. Each year we've also been able to spend time with those kids in that school. This year when we arrived in Pala and we first saw Emmeline, we asked why she wasn't in school. This loving, smart 14-year-old kid with tears in her eyes replied, "I can't go to school. We don't have the money to go to school." Unfortunately, Emmeline has become part of the statistics, a family living below poverty level. And Emmeline, like so many other children, is forced to drop out of school. This left me with a heavy heart, with thoughts and feelings that I'm still sorting through even as I'm back to my everyday life in Maryland. This is now the Mejia Miguel family. They live in a village called Poza de la Pila. Guadalupe, you'll see there the father, he was injured at work. He was actually electrocuted, which caused him to lose his left leg and left arm. Through our partnership with the local Ipaltecos, we were able to bring a wheelchair. It was donated to him to help him get around. Unfortunately, after his accident, the lack of income meant he could no longer afford to pay for the girls to be in school. The education for his two girls was now no longer affordable, so they had to drop out of school. This story doesn't end there, though. Darius, the student that we met earlier, you'll see her here. She, because of the scholarship that you provided, she will be graduating from Diversicado in November to become a teacher in Ipala and continuing the ripple effect. And by the way, you also provided a scholarship for her younger sister, so both of the girls are back in school. As you can see, you really do matter. Everything you do has an impact on someone, somewhere, even if you don't know them. It could be a stranger on the other side of town who is affected by a kind word that you extend to your neighbor, who in turn extends that act of kindness to that person. Then again, it could be a person in another country that receives a scholarship, that grows up to provide a scholarship for another child that otherwise would have to quit school in 6th grade. Darius, the two girls we talked about earlier, Darius and her little sister Beverlyn, they wanted you to know how much it meant to them, the scholarships that you provided so that they could return to school. So Julio's going to share with you now the letters that they wrote for you.
Good morning, I'm Julio. This was my 4th time in Ipala, I believe. These two girls that Teresa was talking about, it's a great story because when Matthew visited Ipala and last year in February, these two girls were not going to school. Their cycle for school is from January through October. And because of the fatal accident, these kids were not able to go to school. So 2 scholarships were given to them immediately on that trip, and they missed about 6 weeks of school, but they enrolled back in school, and they finished the year and they did very well. So here's a letter that they wrote to you. This is from Darius. It says, first of all, I'd like to wish you a marvelous day and may God spill over blessings in your homes and in your daily activities. I want to thank you with lots of love and affection for all the support that you have given to my sister and me so that we can pursue our dream of staying in school. I am so grateful to you because of your help and God's grace. I will graduate with a degree in education this year. I now say goodbye. Thank you so much for your help. With love, Dairy. And her little sister wrote the following letter. So hello, I hope you are successful in all your daily work and may God spill over many blessings in all you do. As someone said before, they always take into consideration that God is first and foremost in everything they do and the way they express gratitude to all of you. She goes, I want to thank you for the 2 years that you have helped me with the scholarship so that I can achieve my goals and realize my dream of continuing with my education. Thanks to you, I am now in the first year studying business administration. It is my dream to graduate and become somebody in life. And when I achieve my goal of graduating, I want to help someone that is in need with their education. Giving you thanks for this grand opportunity for me to go ahead with my dream. May you have a beautiful day and may God bless you. I think that the important thing about these letters and what I want to convey to you is that some of these children that we are able to help, when I say we are, I'm talking about our community here in Cedar Ridge, they do need the help, but they are not the type of people who they just want to hand out. They really want to, they want to do things with their life, and they want to just go on and be productive members of their society. As you notice on the first letter, after 2 years, the first person is going to graduate and become a teacher. So she no longer will be needing the scholarship, so someone else can take over. The sister, very eloquent, said that one of her dreams is just to pay back some of the things that we've done by once she graduates and becomes a productive member of society, she can help someone else like we were able to help them. So I am so proud of our community here in Cedar Ridge and all we're doing for some of these children and families. And I just want to briefly say on 1 John 3:18, it says, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. And I think the Cedar Ridge community does it so well because there is never an agenda. It's all the giving that you guys give every week or however often, whatever little, your prayers when we travel, that is making a difference in so many people in Ipala. And I really believe, and from the bottom of my heart, that all of you are really the feet and hands of Jesus, as whether you're here or some of the people who have traveled to Ipala and have worked a little bit. So thank you so very much, and I think that's it, right? Oh. Okay, yeah, there's another little thing that we do, well, not little, through our partnership with Cedar, we do have a little, or they do have a little health fund. The health issue in Ipala, like in Guatemala, is huge. And these statistics are very real. The chronic undernutrition rate for children in Guatemala under 5 is 49%, and the highest in the region, and 4th highest in the world. Lucy, one of our partners in Guatemala, told me and told us that there are 23 severe cases of malnutrition in Ipala. Without a small fund that we provide for them, they have been able to rescue 4 children that were in critical condition, and they brought them back to some kind of health that is manageable at least. And last but not least, in 2012, we started with 31 scholarships, and now you all have 49 students attending school and continue with their dream of educating themselves. Thank you very much.
I think just because we can, maybe, we intended to finish up with a less than 1 minute video clip. Can we try it? If not, I'll just sing myself. It's a group of English students who are singing for us, and it helps to communicate the hope for the future that they have. Thank you again for listening to us. Thank you for your support. And as you give to the general fund here at Cedar Ridge, that's where the action happens in terms of what goes on that we're able to do in Guatemala in partnership with the folks down there. As we move into our time of worship today, I'd encourage you as you're up and getting communion and all that kind of thing, that you would stop towards the back and check out some of the very colorful letters written to Cedar Ridge Church. You may not be able to understand them, but I think you can see the expressions of gratitude to you all for the support that you've given those scholarship students or some of the school students that have written back there. Please take a look at that and be sure to browse out in the comments. All of those were handmade gifts or other gifts to Cedar Ridge from the people that we met down there. And then under the thing that says communion, there are some little brown pieces of stuff. That is actually candy that was prepared by Ida, who is kind of one of our favorite restaurant owners down in Ipala. And she said, I would love for you to take this back. It's kind of a traditional candy where it's a big thing and you kind of chop it up and you distribute it to folks. And she wanted to give that to our congregation, and so you can stop by those two tables as you're looking and pick up a piece of candy and just enjoy it as a little taste of Ipala. Why don't we just take a moment to close off this portion in prayer, and then Steve will come and lead us in communion. Lord, we're so grateful for the way that you do use people like us to impact the lives of people far away, and how you use people far away to impact people like us. We thank you for the way that you have shown us what it means to be grateful, to live simply, to express gratitude to God, and to welcome people openly. So Lord, we pray today your blessing be upon the leaders and the children and all the folks in Ipala, and that you would continue to give them a sense of hope, that you are there, that you are with them, and that as they work together, they can see beautiful things happen in that community. Thanks for allowing us to be a part of that, to see it firsthand, and to contribute in so many ways to the well-being of people, that those folks might flourish, and that we might flourish as well as a result of our connection with them. We pray this in Jesus' name.